We start this hour in Europe, where US Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasized that the Trump administration is not seeking to exert dominance over the continent. During his visit to Bratislava following the Munich Security Conference, Rubio stated that the United States welcomes Europe's shift away from dependence on US power. Let's take a listen in to his statements.
We don't want Europe to be dependent. We're not asking Europe to be a vassal of the United States. We want to be your partner. We want to work with Europe. We want to work with our allies. We want to work in cooperation with you. And our point has been and continues to be, the stronger you are, both on an individual basis in terms of countries and collectively as an alliance, the stronger the members of NATO are.
This follows his speech at the Munich Security Conference, which contrasted sharply with US Vice President J.D. Vance's controversial address last year, focusing on European policies. As US-Europe ties faced strains, Rubio sidestepped MAGA flashpoints and culture wars, which had deepened rifts, notably over the US national security strategy. Separately, European leaders, including Ursula von der Leyen and Keir Starmer, called for greater defence responsibility within NATO in Munich. Joining us now to discuss the developments coming out of Europe is Raymond Vickery. He's a former US Secretary of Commerce. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Raymond, thank you so much for speaking to us. First of all, Marco Rubio's speech in Munich highly contrasted J.D. Vance's last year. What do you think drove the US Secretary of State to speak in the way that he has done? Is the US administration concerned that tariff threats, Greenland annexation threats have alienated Europe a bit too much?
Well, thanks, Thomas, for having me and allowing me to comment on this. Marco Rubio is a very intelligent man. But when he speaks of being a vassal, he is, of course, a vassal to President Trump. He knows that the approach on Greenland, on tariffs, on the kind of J.D. Vance sledgehammer approach, criticizing Europe on immigration, on limitations about speech which could lead to hate, and was a part of the whole Nazi approach to affairs. Marco Rubio is a different person, and he knows that approach is wrong. Nevertheless, he is a vassal to President Trump, and he must adhere to certain points in that. He has emphasized really cultural matters that are supposedly exclusive to Europeans. That has not been the policy of the United States. I mean, he's off to try to make amends with and strengthen a relationship with the two dissenting countries in the EU. So yes, it's somewhat of a relief, but I think what you're hearing from the Europeans is, yes, we have the message that the United States has abdicated its position as leader of the free world, and what we must do now is find our way forward, but we can't do it immediately because we do not have the arms, and we do not have the coordination among all the countries necessary for that. So yes, it is amelioration, but it is no solution to the problem which has been created by President Trump and his approach to Europe.
Indeed, and as you've mentioned, Raymond, Marco Rubio is going to visit Hungary, and he's going to visit Slovakia, two countries which are seen as outliers in the European Union, particularly in their stance towards Moscow. What we have mentioned is the absence of speaking about these culture wars which have been going on, which is one of MAGA's focal points. Of course, we've discussed it many times. Donald Trump's national security strategy document, where he cites Europe's immigration problem, among other cultural issues, that the United States doesn't view Europe in a light way when it comes to those. How central are those culture wars, especially to the MAGA movement in relation to their relationship with Europe?
Well, they're very central because President Trump is nothing without his MAGA base. And every time he's asked to broaden his perspective, he doubles down on the cultural wars, on the immigration. And if you look at the national security strategy, it's plain that it throws Europe under the bus. The problem is that President Trump has a 19th century view of the world, and that is that great powers have their own empires and spheres of influence, and then the rest of the world makes a way on its own. The problem with that, of course, is that if you divide the world up that way, these so-called great empires with Russia in Europe, China in Asia, the United States in the Western Hemisphere, they rub up against each other. And that's a recipe for war. That's what happened in the 20th century, and it can happen again. And with nuclear weapons in the offing, it is existential in terms of the international system. So this approach is wrong, and the Europeans are trying to make the best of it, but they have a long way to go, both in unity and in being able to have the wherewithal to be able to have a deterrence, which has kept the peace for some 80 years now, until the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Do stay with us, Raymond, as we turn over to our next story. More from the United States. U.S. Secretary of State